And we're back with another episode of Building with You Live, the show where we sit down with folks from DTC brands and build a branded chatbot with them live. I'm your host, Sean, with your co-host, Tyler, also the guy who will be building the bots live. Stephen, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. Looking forward to what's next.
So Stephen, the CEO of Xero Shoes, an 8-figure shoe company that prides itself in providing a doorway to natural movement without an exit and building really, really comfy shoes. Stephen, I know you mentioned that Xero Shoes started almost as a joke in a corner of a spare bedroom where you initially pitched the idea to your wife, Lena. She kind of lovingly swatted you away. It wasn't until she tried her first pair of shoes that she really came on board. Could you tell us a little bit more about what the journey felt like, leaving behind whatever jobs you had then and turning this full time? How did you personally overcome the initial internal doubts that you had and keep pushing forward?
Well, internal doubts is not something that I have. Because basically, everything I've ever done for a living, and I've never had an actual job. I've never had a resume. I've never had an interview for a job. I just have been lucky enough that the things that I find interesting, I find a way to make a living doing them. So for me, it's always just kind of curiosity. Like, is this a thing? Can this work? And I don't have an opinion about it. I'm not trying to prove something. I'm not trying to have an idea that I then want to prove that it's real. I just want to see if there's a there at all. So before, my wife and I were basically retired, actually. We had started a search engine marketing business because I'd been an SEO guy since before that was a thing. I've been an internet marketer since 1992. And when I built the website for Xero Shoes, which then was called Invisible Shoes, I thought, maybe it would be a car payment. And I said it would take me like 3 months to kind of really max out the SEO. And then we could use this as a case study. But I was wrong. It only took me 6 weeks until I owned every keyword that I cared about. And it was clear this was going to be more than just a car payment. It was going to be our full-time job. And it took about 7 months until Lena finally walked in and went, okay, I'm all in. And that's how it went. But it started just because someone suggested that I could take a barefoot sandal making hobby that I had created and turn it into a business. And if I did that, he'd put it in a book. And so that's when I pitched this idea to my wife, who told me it was a really stupid idea. You said she lovingly swatted it down. No. She told me I was a complete idiot and I shouldn't do it and, take a Ritalin or something, and which I don't take and I never did because I'm too old for that. But I told her I wouldn't build a website, and then she went to bed and I, of course, built a website. So that's how it all started. And we were really, really lucky in that people were interested in what we were doing from day one.
Oh, that's actually fascinating. I didn't know you had an SEO company prior to this. And you said that you never, so no wonder you never applied for a real job before.
Well, I never applied for a job before. I mean, I've done a lot of different things. I was a professional stand-up comic. I invented the industry standard word processing software for film and television writers. I was acting for a living. I taught various workshops about meditation and financial psychology. Again, I've just been really lucky that things that have caught my interest are things that were solving problems for other people. And I just found a way to introduce those things to other people. In fact, the number one thing that I did when I started Xero Shoes, I made videos showing how to make these sandals based on a 10,000-year-old design idea. But more, I literally gave away our entire business model. It's just that it was easier to then engage with us and buy product from us than doing anything else. But I was just giving away as much as I could. There's a concept that someone came up with called moving the free line. Take things you would normally charge for and just move the line back and give those away for free and add value to people's lives, and eventually ask them if they want to help you, if they want to participate with whatever you're doing. And that was just the way we started Xero Shoes.
So you said something really fascinating. You mentioned the shoe concept is 10,000 years old.
Mm-hmm. Well, shoes, we don't know when it was that people first made shoes, but there's the first archaeological dig that found a piece of footwear. It's from about 10,000 years ago. It's a sandal that they found in Oregon made out of sagebrush. And it looks a lot like the first sandals we made, because footwear is really simple. Something to protect your foot, something to hold that protection on your foot, and if you're living somewhere cold, a little bit of insulation. And so our first sandals that we still sell, that's the gist of what we offer people, is something as natural and fundamental and as old as humans themselves.
Got it, got it. So transitioning a little bit, as the CEO, many things are screaming for your attention on a daily basis. How do you personally differentiate between what's mission critical versus things that can wait, and making sure that when you make a decision, it's the best possible one that you can make at the moment?
Well, obviously doing podcasts, mission critical, and I will move everything around just for that. I mean, clearly, I wish it were that simple. In fact, I think of it less about mission critical than opportunity cost. So what we try to evaluate is how much time something is going to take to make it happen, how much it's going to cost to make it happen, and what we think the opportunity is. And that last one is, of course, where we're guessing completely, because we have no idea until we start testing something if it's actually going to work. But we have some ideas about if it does work, here's a range of what that could mean. And we try to prioritize based on all three of those things: the time, the cost, and the upside. And that's what we focus on. But we're also, because when you're running a business growing as fast as ours, you never get everything done the way you want when you want it. So the next thing is, like, how much money have we been losing by not getting this thing done? So that becomes a fourth factor that comes into play. So what happens for me, and as I'm in a really annoying position as a CEO, because I'm basically CMO as well, but I'm also very involved with the product team, and I'm very involved with the finance world. And so there's a lot of places where I have to put my attention. And I would argue that I don't do prioritizing well. So the thing that I've done is I've just now, after 13 years, I finally have an assistant who's handling a lot of the prioritizing for me and just saying, here's what you need to do. Here's some time I blocked out. Now you can get it done. Because otherwise I will go bounce from thing to thing to thing just as it comes up, because I need to get it done. But I am also in the back of my mind aware of mostly what the possible value is of something. So I know if I need to create an ad, shoot a video, write some copy, I know the importance of those things. So I will pay attention to those. And then after that, the biggest mission critical stuff is just management. It's just staying on top of the various things that I need to pay attention to, working with my product team to make sure they're doing the right thing, working with my marketing team, of which there are 20 people, to track what they're doing, make sure we're still on the same page, try new things, build it all out. So suffice it to say, I guess the better way of answering that, if I were more organized and could prioritize, would be that I just try to I've given up the idea that at the end of the day, my to-do list will be shorter than it was at the beginning of the day. And I just try to know in the back of my mind the things that are the most important things that I should do. And then I just try to get them done when I can. And sorry, the last thing I'll say about that is the caveat is simply that many of the creative things I need to do, copywriting, for example, video script writing, shooting videos, I can't just say, here's an hour at 3 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon, now I'm going to write. Because if I don't have the inspiration for it, if I'm not in the right mindset, I just can't do it. So those things, when I can feel like that inspiration is bubbling up, everything gets put away and I just do that, because I know it's lightning in a bottle. I got to catch it.
Interesting. So moving on to management, I read on your site that your COO, Brighton, mentioned that at Xero Shoes, you guys drive an environment where everybody is encouraged and safe to voice their riskiest ideas. How do you personally cultivate an environment like this and teach your employees that making mistakes is fine?
Well, it's mostly because I've been a marketer for so long, and people have heard me say things like, I have a lot of opinions. I just don't give a crap what any of them are. All I care about is the data. I just want to test things and see what I learn. And so when people see that, they get the hint that there's a there for that. And the other part is we just invite them. I mean, we tell people when we're creating a new product, we want their opinion. We want to hear what they're seeing when they're out in the world. And if this product resonates with the people that they know, or this color resonates with the people that they know, or the things they see when they're in the gym or on a trail or walking around or just hanging out with friends. When we're naming products, we just get everybody involved for naming. And we also have built our compensation structure in a way that makes it clear, and we say this on a regular basis, that we value everybody and care about everybody. So we have a profit sharing inspired quarterly bonus plan. And what that means is every quarter, if we have a profit, we take a percentage of that, and that gets split evenly among everybody in the company. Because if people in the warehouse aren't doing their job, then that's a problem. If our customer service can't do their job, that's a problem. If our accounting people can't do their job, all the way up to the quote C-suite, we really do feel that everyone is in many ways equally important. And we have quarterly team meetings where we show everyone the finances. We show them where they're contributing and where they're costing us. And it gives them a feeling of ownership, because they literally do have ownership. We even have a long-term incentive program where if we ever get acquired or someone takes a controlling interest in the company and pays for that, then again, that money gets, a portion of that gets split evenly among everyone who's been here for a certain amount of time. And then there's a discretionary part for the people who haven't been here that long, or for the people who've gone above and beyond. So everything we do is based on that. And I guess, again, the shortest answer for your question is I like to say all companies rise to the level of the neuroses of their founder. And one of the neuroses, if you want to call it that, that my wife, Lena, and I both have, is that we basically, and I think I do this more than she does, I treat everyone like they're friends of mine. I don't have a hierarchical mentality. And so if somebody calls me, an employee calls me boss, I know they're not going to last very long. And, we really do feel, everyone we're all friends around here, and that's the way we relate to each other. There's no jockeying for position. There's no politics. We have no room for that. If we see people starting to play political games, we find a way to gently escort them to the door, because if they haven't already done something illegal where we have to kick them out of the door because they're trying to do something that just doesn't fit in with what we do. So it's not deliberate. It's just, that's the way we're wired, and that shows up with everything we do.
Man, the culture you cultivate.
Well, wait, hold on. I'll tell you another part of it. We're old. So I'm about to be 61. Lena's 6 years younger.
No way, really?
Yeah. But the reason that I say that's an important thing is that, like, think about, and you're not old enough to have done this. For people who are old enough to have done this, if you think about the relationships you had in your teens and 20s before you got smarter in your 30s and 40s and beyond, we're not in our 20s and 30s. And so we've achieved a certain level of, let's say, psychological awareness or emotional intelligence just from living in, what we've done. And if we had started this company 10 years earlier, it would have been messier, because we were messier.
Man, that is such great advice. So start a company only when you're 40s.
Yeah, just live longer.
Right. So could you give us some advice for business owners within this range of revenue? We have three ranges. The first being under 1 million, the second being 1 to 10, and then the third being 10 million and up.
Okay, wait, I'm making a note about this. 10 plus, or 1 to 10, and then 10 plus. So for under $1 million, I mean, the biggest thing you're still trying to do, frankly, is prove that you're not in an echo chamber. In other words, entrepreneurs, we fall in love with our ideas, and we're often wrong. We often just believe in what we think more than the audience does, more than what the customers might be thinking. So you want to be continuing to prove that you're really offering something that people care about. Now, I got to preface that there's lots of different kinds of businesses, lots of different ways of making money. So I'm thinking about consumer products in particular, things where you're selling something to human beings. They're giving you their hard-earned money, versus other ways of making money that are equally valid. But you want to be finding out that you do have an audience that you can find with a message that resonates with them, because you're offering something of value to them. You're presenting it in a way where they understand that and where they're giving you money. And you really need to, at all these levels, you need to be just tracking your data as meticulously as possible. You need to know every dollar you're spending, what you're spending it on, why you're spending it, and how it contributes to the bottom line. So I say to people on a daily basis, when they want money from me because of some marketing thing they want to do, my response is always, how quickly and cheaply can I find out if you have your head up your butt? And that's my fun way of saying, you're never going to be batting 1,000. You're not doing whatever you do perfectly for everyone. The only thing I can control is my risk, the amount of money that I'm spending. The upside is unknowable. I just want to be able to find out if the upside is there at all as quickly and cheaply as possible. And at that under $1 million range, you don't have a lot of money to spare. So you want to find ways of marketing that are as inexpensive as you can possibly get away with. Or more accurately, you really need to have a much higher return on your investment, a return on your ad spend when you're at that size. In the 1 to 10 range, you have a little more freedom where you can spend a little more on a test. And maybe at that point, you will have been around long enough where you're starting to get a sense of how your customers behave. And if there's a long-term value to your customers, if they're buying from you multiple times, then you can spend a little more because you know that that initial order is not where you're making the most money. You're making the most money on the subsequent orders, which don't cost you as much to get. So you can kind of loosen the reins a little bit, but that's when you have to start looking to see what other audiences you might be able to what other audiences you can target so you can go broad, or how to get even better at providing more value to a smaller audience, maybe at higher price points along the way as they continue to engage with you. And over 10 million, that's when you've got to start paying attention to your infrastructure more than you have before. Do you have the right people in the right place? Do you know how to find the right people? Do you know how to train the right people? Like my quote management style in the early days was none, because we were doing it all ourselves. And then once we got past about 10 million and we had a bunch of, handful of people working with us, my management style was kind of laissez-faire, because it was still not many things where we needed expert level advice or expert understanding of certain things. We just needed more bodies doing stuff. And we brought in people who could do those things. So I just let them do their thing, and I just oversaw it and made sure they were staying within the framework of what I needed, basically delivering the ROAS that I needed in a timely manner. And then once we got past that, that's when I started to actually have to manage, because to your point about time, before, I can't do everything anymore. So I need to make sure that I'm bringing in the kind of people who can really just take things off my plate. And so then I had to start training people, because you bring somebody in who's got skills, they're coming in with a history, and they will want to bring their history with them. And their history may not apply to what you're doing. For us, it's definitely not the case, because what we're doing is so unusual compared to other footwear brands. And so I had to be much more active at getting people to understand which part of their histories they could bring with them that were valuable, and which parts they needed to throw away, and which new things they needed to learn to be able to work in our ecosystem. And so that's how things have evolved. And I think that's going to be relatively similar for most people if we just talk about revenue ranges without getting more specific about business models.
Spoken like a true CEO. So,
well, I do what I can.
We're going to transition over to the bot building segment. Tyler's going to actually drop a link into the chat right now.
Alrighty.
And what we actually did is we copied the quiz funnel that you guys have had on your Xero Shoes website, and we transported it within Messenger. So now we can have the quiz conversation, like a back and forth conversation between a friend. So once you have that link and you're in, Tyler's going to go ahead and share his screen so that we can see what it looks like for you in real time.
So let me share my screen here. And we'll go over it on my side. So window, here it is here. Okay, so I just clicked the link, and essentially what happens when you click the link, you'll get a little bit of a different message, but seeing as if I've already interacted with the page, it just gives me the message straight up. Usually it would be like you have to click get started at the bottom here, and then you would get your first messenger kind of message. So
yep,
you got the text here. We're going to get started. Click let's go. And then it is going to ask me some questions. So this is the kind of first question. We kind of just preloaded it with things that you think we'd want. And I can take whatever order.
So this
is actually coming from something we've already built as a shoe,
Yep.
what we call our shoe finder quiz.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I could take any combination and it will spit out a result. Now, don't get me wrong, the result isn't actually customized. It's going to spit out like the same result for any answer I give. But yeah, this is kind of a demo. So if we really wanted to be specific with every single answer, we'd have to populate a huge spreadsheet.
Well, and
we'll go into
just to let you know, we do that first question mostly so that when we do follow-up, we can cater to that person more directly. We can create messaging that's more relevant for, whether they're just looking for Xero Shoes and we want to send them straight to pick something out at some point versus we know if we're doing follow-up beyond what we're doing in the chatbot or in the bot, that any email follow-up will have some custom messaging based on some of the answers they give, but not all of them.
Right. So I think it's really, really smart that you do this. And what we actually can do within the bot is we are actually pulling every single value that they enter into a custom field so that it can be hooked up to whatever email system that you're running at the moment.
Perfect.
So whilst Tyler is going through this, where we personally would see this being used, of course, you guys already have the data and you guys already know, but we can probably see it being used as top of funnel, get the customer's foot in the door. And we can be using this either for your Facebook post, your Instagram post, having it on your Instagram stories, or even running ads. Basically, posting and getting the customer to comment would trigger this flow, or having it on your Instagram stories and having them DM you a certain keyword would also trigger the flow. Of course, we can run it for retargeting for people who have abandoned their cart, and we can have the quiz reassure them that they're making the right purchase. And additionally, on top of, actually, right now, you can see that these are the recommendations that it has pulled. And we'll go into a little bit of the back end of how this is set up in a while. But there's a little bit of other funnels that we can be building. We noticed that you were running an Ultimate Born to Run 2 giveaway where you were giving away a free pair of Born to Run shoes as well as a signed copy of a book. That's recent, right?
Yeah. It's something this is because we just launched this. Born to Run is the book that kind of created and catalyzed the entire barefoot running natural movement thing back in 2008, 2009. The authors of that book, or the author of that book, and now the co-authors of Born to Run 2 are partners of ours, and we just developed a shoe with them. And so we literally just launched that today. So yeah, that's an event that's happening right now.
Right. So where a bot would be able to come in is we could actually hook up a comment growth tool on that post, such that anyone who comments would get the flow sent to them and they can go through the social contest. Because if I'm not wrong, you have Gleam on your website so that
Correct.
you get all that data. What you can do is you can get all the data within Facebook Messenger instead, and you really keep all that without losing that much data. Anyone who comments is also going to be boosting the organic reach of that post. It's basically like a flywheel effect. And what we can have set up is that the more things that they do, the more points they get. So for example, if they follow you on Instagram, we might give them points. If they purchase a product of yours on your site, we would give them points. And if they tag you in their Instagram stories, we would also give them points. So that's an idea of how a bot would be able to run a social contest. Then there's also the low-hanging fruit of pulling the entire FAQ section into Messenger, such that your team will take lesser time having to go through like the standard, hey, how do I return my shoe? Or if I purchase the size wrong, what do I do? Everything the bot can handle. And finally, we would have abandoned cart sequences, such that when the customer abandons the cart, we would send them a DM, such that they would hopefully come back and repurchase. So that's a high-level overview.
Well, let me ask you a question about that one. So if they're abandoning cart, how only send them a DM if they've engaged with us already here on Facebook. So how are you putting those two things together? Especially, I mean, if they haven't logged into our site, if it's abandoned cart, they haven't given us an email address. So talk to me about how that works.
Right. So it's almost the same as a Klaviyo abandoned cart, where you would have a messenger pop up on the site asking if they would like to be opted in via messenger.
Got it.
So that would be more or less.
Got it.
Yeah. So Tyler's going to be walking you through what the backend looks like, and feel free to stop us if you have any questions at all. Tyler can go ahead.
Yeah, you don't need to worry about that. I will.
Sounds good. So basically, I'm going to be walking you through the flow that we just went through. So this is the starting step. This is the step that you had a little bit of difficulty on with the messenger kind of ref URL is what they call it. So this is the link that they can click onto, and then they would, they're supposed to get this kind of first message here, and then they would continue on to the next flow. Now, you can also have this connected to a Facebook comment growth tool. So if, let's say, you created a post on Facebook saying, hey, if you're interested in going through a quiz funnel to figure out exactly what footwear you need, click or comment something XYZ. And then it would then trigger this kind of flow. So there are multiple ways they can get through this. It's not just through clicking a link.
Great.
And the way I set up my flows is I kind of cut them up in a bunch of pieces, because in theory, I could have glued all of this in together. But I like to kind of divide things and put them into subfolders. So that way it's easy to track and just kind of like, oh, I need to find this. I know exactly where that is. So after this flow, it goes into this next flow, which is a product recommender. So this is where it gets all the variables. This is the actual quiz portion. And I know it looks a little scary, like a bee's nest here, but it's not too bad once you get through it. First, it kind of goes through.
That looks like how my brain feels.
Yeah, there you go. First, it'll go through kind of this condition to see, have they went through this before? If the answer is yes, then it'll ask them, like, what do you want to change, if anything? So they go over here if they've already went through it before. But if it's their first time, which it was on my end because I ended up clearing all the fields before the call. But essentially, you then get asked these questions. And when you answer them, this is a little tricky right here. When you answer them, we have to convert the emoji 1 into a just normal 1, because that's the only way it could read inside the spreadsheet. So we did this for 4.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's why there's all this logic here that in theory isn't fully necessary if it was able to read emojis, but unfortunately it isn't. So we added this formatting here just so it would work. So yeah, this is question 2, and it's the same thing. The formatting is the same thing. And then question 3, we didn't need to worry about formatting because it was a yes or no question. And then 4, same
So
thing.
if you notice, we put the question number at the very top. And the reason why we do this is because we are telling the customers to how long more before they complete the quiz. And we've actually noticed a 10% bump in completion rates by adding this. We also have the squiggly red line that you see the blocks pointing to. And it's basically in the event that the customer does not reach out or complete the task in 15 minutes, ping them as a reminder. But we also don't want to be pinging them on every single question, which is why we have that conditional logic block to see. Or we have the tag first. The moment they have the first follow-up, we make sure we don't follow up again with them on the subsequent other questions, just to make sure that the customer experience is fine.
So let me just acknowledge something really quickly. Clearly, you have learned these things the hard way through trial and error and discovering, and you have, and that's some really brilliant insight that you've put together for how to do that. So I just want to acknowledge that.
I really appreciate it. Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah, believe me, we've had a lot of trial and error. Even just building this, we ran into a lot of error, but we made it work.
Well, that's how it works.
Yeah. Clever. So yeah, as Sean was saying, we basically have every time they get to a new message, it goes through kind of a condition saying like, okay, do they have this tag? If they do, then do nothing, right? That's why there's green arrow to leads nowhere. If they don't have the tag, then it would add the tag and then add them a reminder. The only way that they can get to this is that if the user does not respond within a certain amount of time, which I believe it's set to an hour, if they don't respond within that hour, then it goes through this logic, and then it would bump them up, giving them a reminder message saying like, hey, you haven't finished the quiz. And that's more or less the message. I'm paraphrasing. So yeah. And
actually, well, let me ask you a question right there. Can you, is there a way of, without getting hyper complicated, of split testing even just some of that messaging? So, because sometimes, you want to be a little more formal, sometimes you want to be a little more casual, or at least see which one works better. So is there a way of doing that without getting, again, really, really rat's nesty?
No, 150%. So I'm going to give you the high level overview here. But how we actually split test copy is we put the date of the copy that we're split testing, and then we run traffic to the 2 different nodes. So you can see that Tyler's really, really granular with what he names his nodes. Like you can see it's question 1 XYZ. But what he's basically doing right now is he's putting a randomizer block such that if we drive 100 people in, 50 people are going to get the first message and 50 people are going to be getting the second message. And it's very, very integral in our testing process.
Yeah, that was wonderful to see how simple that would be.
Okay.
We can make it complicated if you want to.
Yeah, for sure. We could definitely do that.
You could.
Yeah. And then we would just publish our changes. So yeah, it's that simple. If you wanted to test maybe 4 different messaging, you would just add more here, add some more variables. But we're going to keep it to 2 for now. Oh, that's all good. So that's how you would split test if you wanted to do different messaging. You can even really customize based on like all kinds of different things. I've seen some people, like this was way back in the day, they would customize their messaging based on their gender, because there are filters you can have to see what gender they are, because everybody puts it on their Facebook profile. So you can like give them different emojis. So you could be a little more playful. You could do all kinds of different testing on messaging. And then see once, like if I was to publish this and then just view it on normal mode, obviously we only have like 1 person that went through. It's just me, maybe 2, because Sean went through it as well earlier today. But you can see essentially like the amount of responses they get, the click-through, all that good stuff. Let me try to zoom in here if it shows us. Yeah, so you can see 2 people went through it, delivery 100%, open rate 100%, click-through 100%. So our stats are looking 100%. But yeah, that's just because only me and Sean went through. So
that's
you can
really
see
great.
all the people kind of going through and the drop-off and so on. Okay.
Yeah, that's incredibly valuable, obviously, because if you're seeing a massive drop-off, there's definitely room to experiment to see what to do about that. It's funny, this is perfect timing. We have somebody that we're working with who said, I want to survey your customers, and he sent me a list of 25 questions. I said, there's just no way any human being is going to go through that, even if they're yes or no questions. Just not going to happen. And more importantly, if you want all of them, just put the most important ones first, because trust me, no one's going to get to the end. So this is great to see.
If anyone wants to pick, his name is Steven, guys. His mind is a wealth of information.
Yeah.
So here's where things are getting interesting to me, because showing all their results. By the way, I did notice when it was showing, here's the things you selected. My memory is that the first question, which was our 1, 2, and 3 for whether you're just looking for a new pair of Xero shoes, new to the whole minimalist idea, or not new to it, it just showed the 1, 2, or 3 without reminding them which answer that was. If I'm remembering correctly.
So it's because it's only I ... So it might be because of that it might have gotten overfilled. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. This is pretty small on my screen. Oh, there we go. Yes. And so that was okay. And then
definitely could have buttoned up the copy a little bit better.
I got it. And you'll have to pardon me, but even with my glasses, it's a little tricky to see something.
Yeah, I'm sure it's pretty small. I'm trying to like enlarge it as much as I can. So once they get to this kind of final message right here with all their kind of quiz questions, they can either change some of them if they want to, or they can get the recommendations. Now, the way we have it set up, when they do click Get Recommendations, it goes into this other flow. Now, this flow is actually, it looks very simple, but there's quite a bit of logic here. This is just for formatting reasons. I could have had it in the other flow, but we put it here. And this is the one where it fetches the information from a Google spreadsheet, and then it spits it all back out into this dynamic kind of content here. And we're using bot sheets to kind of formulate this. But this is where all the data gets pulled from, which is this spreadsheet right here. Now, the way I have it set up right now is that no matter what answer they choose, they'll always get these recommendations, because the answers are 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is where I was saying the emojis don't pick up here. If you put them on here, it'll freak out. Like just putting an apostrophe took us forever to figure that out. So needless to say, that's why these are here. But if you really wanted to, you could make a huge catalog of all the customizable questions. So if they answered question 1, yes, 1, then this could be a customized kind of product.
Let me interject for a sec, because there's certain times where we wouldn't where the recommendations we'd be showing do not are based on answers to only a subset of the questions. In other words, there's some information we just want the information, but it has no impact on what we're recommending. And there's some questions where it actually has an impact on what we're recommending. So can I? So we got question 1, 2, 3, 4, et cetera. But do we need to have a specific response for every one of them to come up with the recommendations?
No, yeah, the answer would be no to that.
I assumed that was the answer, but But I figured I would ask it out loud because that might be useful for other people. But I assume that was the case because you guys are not idiots. So very, very clever. Now, just to be clear, though, if let's say for the fun of it that people for every question, it's question 1 is a 1, 2 is a 1, 3 is a yes, 4 is a 1, 5 is a 1, and 6 is a whatever they're selecting. It's women's, men's, etc. If we remind me again, then what we're doing if we want to be showing multiple products for the same answer or the same set of answers.
Yeah, you would basically do what I did here, which is like you have the answers. Like, let's say you wanted to show it off for 1 and 2 and not 3, you would just remove the 3 and keep the 1 and 2. And if you just wanted to show for 1, then you'd remove
No, I'm asking a slightly different question.
Okay.
So let's say so we have people who answer again. So I'm trying to think. So someone answers question 1 is a 1, 2 is a 1, 3 is a yes, 4 is a 1, 5 is a whatever. But whatever they've gone through, that whole sequence, we're going to show them 4 different products, let's say. So how am I going to show 4 different products for the same set of answers?
So it's based on everything matching. So essentially, if they answer 1, 2, 3, 4, theoretically in the spreadsheet, there would have to be at least 4 of those products that match all of the answers that they've provided. So you would try to put in your entire catalog, which would probably take a very long time because you guys have quite a catalog. And then you can group it so that if they answer those particular answers the way you want it to, that it'll come up. So you just have to customize your questions. I
don't want to necessarily do it right now, but because if I did that, if I did every possible combination of answers leading to multiple products, that would be way more complicated or just be way more time intensive because that's a 2-dimensional thing rather than a 3-dimensional thing. Or it's a flat spreadsheet instead of a relational database, for example. But if I wanted certain products showing up based on multiple possible iterations of the way they answered questions. Trying to think of how to describe this. I'm starting from the product back instead of from the answers forward. So like this product will be relevant for the following answers rather than here's the answers, here's the products that are relevant. Do you know where I'm going?
I think I understand, yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So to do it that way, you would just want to have your...
I just want to be clear. This is a complicated thing to do, doing a product recommendation engine this way, because I've done things like this in the past. So I want to acknowledge that for everybody. But again, from our end, it's easier to identify conceptually. It's easier to say this product is relevant for the following questions, answered the following way, rather than if we go through this entire series of questions, these are the 4 products that will be relevant. Because then I have to, for the next series of questions, I might be using 3 of those 4 products and then 1 additional. And then the next question could be those same 3 products again in a different additional. And that could just get really, really, that could make the spreadsheet massively large in a way that is, I'm hoping, a simpler way.
Yeah, when we had these all unique values, we ran into roughly 4,000 something rows. Like when I had to individually, because do some testing to see whether or not it would work. And basically we had, instead of doing 1, 2, 3, like I did here, I had it so it was 1 all on this one, and then I had to make another 6 rows, 2 and 3 and the 4. And basically what you're doing is that it's exponential. So you're doing 3 times 6 times 2 times 3 times 3 and then times 3. So you're getting 4,000 plus rows by the time you add all that math in.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And again, if there are multiple products based on all those iterations, then you're multiplying that by the relevant products. So now if we did that, just knowing how the answers actually pan out, we'd end up very quickly at 20,000 rows plus.
Probably, yes. It could get
so I'm trying to find a way to not do it that way.
Yeah, we'd have to maybe just use
but that's a really good question. So if we start from the product back, then I think if we were to identify whatever variables would lead to whatever products, then we would have a big idea. And from that big idea, we could identify what roles we need to throw in. Personally, that's what I think.
Yeah, I think you could be right. Clever. So, all right. Anyway, moving on. Now that we've taken that deep dive, way deeper than most humans will want to follow.
Yeah, for sure. So anyways, so that's basically the back-end logic. Now, if a product wasn't to come up, which it's technically impossible the way I have it set up now, you go into this kind of unable to find a product flow, and then they would change their variables to hopefully be able to find some recommendations.
Got it.
And we also have, so as soon as they get this message right here, they go into the survey follow-up flow. Now we just added this as a footer flow is what we like to call it. So it's like you have them do your main goal, and then they do like a follow-up, like asking for a review almost. Basically, you just ask them like, hey, did you find this useful? And then they can click yes or no, need assistance, and then customer support can either assist them.
So the reason why we do this is because we've noticed that eCom brands that run Hotjar on their site, typically before people bounce, the Hotjar pops up and asks like, hey, is there any reason why you're not purchasing today? And through information like that, you would be able to tweak and optimize your offer. Maybe it's not, maybe they want a bundle, but a bundle's not available. Maybe they're looking for a discount. I don't know. Whatever offer or whatever objections they throw out, we find that it's useful to have that footer flow so that we can feed back to the team such that the team can iterate. And that's why we have that footer flow.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you the ballsiest question that I can ask that just occurs to me. What, if anything, are you able to do with any of the stuff that we're talking about or any other iteration, thanks to the lately no one can talk about anything else ChatGPT? Right now everything's pretty much, like it's multiple choice versus whatever you can do at a ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
So let Tyler answer this one, but we basically shot a ChatGPT video for two episodes where we hooked up ChatGPT to ManyChat. And now let Tyler take over.
Yeah, so we've essentially utilized it in our chatbots, and like you can kind of limit what it says, so you can make it your customer support bot if you really wanted to. We had one seller kind of interested on the fence, but basically wanted to do like a frequently asked questions for a particular product that they sell. So instead of like having it maybe a static page, the human can type in certain answers. And this is also like doable with Dialogflow and Janus and stuff like that. But
sure,
we haven't actually pulled that off yet. It's something that theoretically can be pulled off, where you can have a bot customized for a specific product to be its frequently asked questions kind of bot. So
yeah, I know. And I asked that question knowing that most people have a mistaken idea about what ChatGPT can actually do, let alone, how you're going to input the information it would need to give good answers. But clearly it's important to be thinking in that direction to see where there is a valid application. I say that most people think of ChatGPT like the replicator on Star Trek. They just assume everything's possible. Just ask for it and you get whatever you want. It's like, it's not there yet.
Oh, 100%,
something like that, yeah.
100%.
Yeah, and I'm sure as it's kind of in its infancy, it'll grow from where it is. So I'm sure it'll be even more useful in the future than it is now.
Right, so we're going to be winding down this podcast. I just want to say thank you so much for your time, Stephen. You have been an amazing guest. Is there anything at all that you would like to plug or you'd like to share with our listeners?
Oh, that's very kind of you. Well, we make the most comfortable shoes in the world because they're made to fit human feet with nice wide toe boxes and low to the ground for balance and agility. And they can help you develop foot strength and things that are important for your life. So we have casual and performance shoes, boots, and sandals, and you can find us at xeroshoes.com. That's Xero shoes.com. But if your browser changes it to Zero, guess what? It'll probably still get to us. And of course, we're on social media at Xero Shoes or /Xero Shoes, wherever you @ or /.
Perfect. Thanks, guys.